I'm Chris Domstrand, and I'm from Minneapolis, right in the city. I was growing up, I had a grandpa that was in the Navy. Great-grandpa, actually, that served in World War II, and then my dad was a Marine. So it was kind of in our background. I had no intentions of joining. 9/11 happened, and it was a time where kind of, if you read at all about when World War II started, everyone got patriotic and they all joined together, and that's a lot of what happened after 9/11.
On the morning of September the 11th, 2001, at 8:46 a.m., hijackers flew American Air Flight's Flight 11 into the northern facade of the North Tower. Just 17 minutes later, a second team of hijackers flew United Airlines Flight 175 into the South Tower, which collapsed 56 minutes later.
So my future was altered once those towers got hit and I joined the military. My expectations were very, very minimal. I was more or less, I just wanted to be involved in the fight to help a situation that I thought was terrible. So I went in pretty blind. So I was a part of Fox Company's 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and we were a helo unit. So for people that don't understand what helo is, that's a helicopter unit. That means, in the Marine Corps, you have air, land, and sea. Some people are in boats. For us, we were a helo unit. So we trained to do operations up in the mountains, doing fast roping, and essentially we were trained to conduct combat operations as high as we can get a helo. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this story of the lone survivor. There was a book written, and there was also a movie. Okay, this happened while I was in Afghanistan. Ahmad Shah was their target, or who they were gaining information on. That all went sideways. Ahmad Shah in his cell ended up killing 3 of those SEALs, and then taking down another helicopter full of SEALs, and there were somewhere around 20 special operations personnel killed in that battle. So they were sending us in, Fox Company 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, to go in there and find and kill these people. And we were, like I said, we weren't initially the main effort, but we were going to be a part of that fight one way or another. It just so happens we became the main effort because we were closer, and they chose to hit us first. So at that point in time, we were all, we'd call it rookies. We were in the military. Some of us had rank, some of us didn't, but none of us were combat vets. I was 19 years old. I was a kid. I was just, nobody thought what happened was going to happen. So we always trained for it, and we always prepared for it. But nobody knew the signs because they had yet to be involved in a battle or a firefight. So we woke up that morning, the sun started coming up. It was freezing at night, and so it felt great. The sun would hit your skin, and it was the first feeling of warmth in many hours. And so when I say that the sun came up and then it was followed by bullets, we were in an ambush, and they were waiting for that sun to come up so they could see us to initiate their attack. So when they attacked us with machine gun fire, sniper fire, rifle fire, mortar fire, RPGs. So it was it was pretty intense. In the location where I was, there were 4 people. Okay, there was a fire team, me and 3 others. And within the first 15 minutes, 3 out of us 4, 3 of the other individuals were severely wounded. So one guy, Adams, he had a it wasn't a life-threatening wound, but it did take him out of the fight. He got a chunk of his arm blown off from an RPG. and the light machine gunner, we call him a saw gunner, that was near me named Wilson. He was shot 3 times. Once in his, I guess all 3 times in his leg, blew his calf off. And then Einerson, which I talk to from time to time still, he was shot initially in his wrist, and as I was trying to patch up his wrist, then he was shot in the chest. And so this was all, I was a kid 15 minutes prior to this, and I think that's when I became a man. And I remember watching every single Marine has seen a movie called Full Metal Jacket, and I remember seeing a guy named Joker, and he says, "Man, I'm not ready for this." And I thought, "Oh man, what a wuss, he's not ready for this." The first thing that came to my mind was, I ain't ready for this. When it turned into a war zone, I didn't know what a war zone sounded like. All I knew was the movies that I saw. So it took a few seconds to realize what was happening is we were getting shot at. And I remember looking around, and it looked just like the movies where the dust was just getting kicked up all around like there were firecrackers going off and explosions going off. Now we had, this is a massive mountain. We're right in the Chalkay Valley. Okay, so if you look that up and you see that terrain, the terrain is very difficult to navigate. So now that we have 3 casualties, we need to move those casualties with us. And at this time, the casualties were passed out. So we had to move essentially lifeless, which they did end up surviving. But we had to, it was, I would say probably 3 hours. It took us 3 hours to move them up to the top of the mountain where we could get in better position to call in a medical evacuation helicopter, as well as a better position for returning fire. It wasn't clear. We fought that battle, and we fought fresh people as we were getting extremely exhausted. So day 1 and 2, we were fighting fresh. 3 and 4, we were starting to hallucinate. In day 5 and 6, we're actually fighting them as we're leaving the valley. We know that there's only so many days we can go without sleep, and that we're not fighting a tired enemy. We're fighting enemies, combatants that are fresh. So we pushed out towards vehicles. We did that 3-day movement back to our vehicles where we could get a resupply. And we fought them the entire way. They ambushed us every chance they could get. Now, I would say every engagement, I would say the majority of the engagements we won, but they never stopped coming. Now, even when we got to our vehicles and we started heading back to Jalalabad, which was one of the main bases at that time, and I think still was in the later years, they were ambushing our vehicles until we got in the gate, in the wire. So there was a constant firefight. I don't think there was anything, we never went more than 2 or 3 hours without a full-on engagement until we got back in the wire.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
So at this time in 2006, fighting in Iraq, we were dealing with, I guess, the typical insurgent, the drive up, shoot, unload a machine gun, and then try to speed away without getting caught. So still could be dangerous. And then also we dealt with IEDs, so improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs, which they were everywhere. You couldn't drive on roads. So the IED battle didn't exist like that in Afghanistan, which is a great thing, because I think one thing that all of us Marines, and probably everybody period, would agree on is if we're going to die in battle, we want to die in a battle, not from an IED. From the day we got to Iraq, there was mortar fire, and it was hitting outside of the base, and it was consistently there. It's called bracketing, where they make corrections on where to dial in that mortar fire. And it got to the point where they were directly hitting our building every single day. And we were in an elementary school. So it was a big concrete roof, concrete wall elementary school, but it had windows that were all blown out. We had sandbags in them. And so the roof was being totally demolished by this mortar fire. And every time it would hit the roof, we'd go out there and fill all the massive holes up with sandbags. Well, they started using a different style of mortar. It was a much bigger mortar round. And they were calling it Slavic. I don't know, that's probably where it came from, I'm not sure. But it was a much longer mortar round, and the explosions were much larger. And so we heard the outgoing rounds, and I was kind of in my bed. Usually if they hit and they don't hit within 20 feet of me, I'm staying asleep. I'm not even moving, because it was every single day. Every single day we were getting hit by mortar fire. So this one, it finally hit that soft spot in the roof that had been hit so many times that the entire room went, it looked like the roof blew through.